Alright, so last week we did a engine oil change and we changed the transmission fluid, and so now I've got gear oil on hand. So this is 80W90. Honestly, I'd have preferred just a straight 90 weight, but it should be fine, especially since we're doing a full change here. So remember, that's going to be this fill point and this dipstick, and then I found the drain point for this. So it's kind of, we're on the passenger side, if you will, of the backhoe, and it's right up underneath here. So I've already stuffed my bucket under here, and it looks like my bucket's going to be too tall. So I think I'll cut another bucket down, because this one's a handy size. So I'll cut another one down short enough to fit in there, and then what we'll have to do is kind of let that fill up a little bit, and we'll plug it back off, pull that out, dump it into an empty bucket somewhere, and do that 2 or 3 times until we get the whole thing empty. So this is a 4-gallon system, or at least that's what the book says. So I've got 4 gallons and then a little bit extra there that we can dump in there and use to top it off and whatnot. But I shouldn't need any of that little one. We'll see though. So, alright, first things first, I'll get my bucket cut down, gotta find a good one, and then we'll get all this oil drained. You guys see that? That is water dripping out of the bottom of my gearbox here. So that's why we're changing this. Not cool. It's quite a bit of water. So obviously oil, even though this is a heavy gear oil, water is still heavier. And so it's all settled down to the bottom. Wow, that's crazy. To have that much free water in the oil is absurd. So that's not cool at all. Let me see if I can hold this. Okay, so that's probably about all the water that's free. And now that gear oil is going to be quite a bit heavier, so it's not going to come out as quickly. Oh, there's more. Look at that. This is still all just water, guys. There's no oil yet. These threads feel a little bit gritty. I bet there's quite a bit of surface rust on the inside of everything in here. So that's the real problem. Still not seeing oil. Alright, now we're getting into the oil. Come on, cat. Don't drop the plug, Garrett. I gotta thread this back in here. Alright, sorry, this is hard to do one-handed under here. My bucket's about full now. So, this is more water coming out of there, which is just crazy. So I'm gonna get this bucket out, we'll dump it and put it back under here, and we'll drain some more. I think it'll probably take about 4 times of doing that before I get the whole system empty. So let me do that, and then I'll show you the oil I get out of it. It looks terrible. So here's the oil that I pulled out of this system. Now, it doesn't look great, but it doesn't look that bad either. I mean, you can see it's kind of milky. It did occur to me though that one of the benefits of gear oil is that it does not readily mix with water, right? Kind of like the transmission fluid does. It mixes pretty readily with water. So while there was some free water in the bottom of that system, the majority of what the gears were actually in, what they were actually working in, would have been oil, or at least mostly oil. So that's good. Yeah, I don't know. Pretty nasty. So I spilt a little bit. I drug the little black bucket out from underneath, and then I was picking it up, being real careful, trying not to spill any. I started to stand up, hit my head right on the bucket. Oops, caused me to spill a little bit on the ground there. No big deal. So anyway, glad to have that out of there. As much water that came out. What I think is probably going on is that this is probably not sealing very well. So might look at replacing this seal. And then while I'm at it, that's probably where the water in the transmission fluid was coming from as well. So I need new seals for both of these dipsticks, I think. I think that'll help. And also, I've just been leaving them hand tight, just because it's convenient. And, you know, I mean, I snug them down with my hand, but this time I'm going to see if I can put a wrench on them. This one's a little bit tricky because it's kind of down inside here. So it's hard to get a wrench on it. So without taking the floor plate off. And that particular floor plate's not real easy to get off. So that one, though, I can definitely get to with a wrench. And we'll definitely put a little bit of tight on them and make sure it doesn't leak anymore. So, alright. Got the funnel in there already. So start dumping some new fluid in there. One thing to note is that there is, I think, about 4 gallons of fluid that came out of it, so that's good. At least it had kind of enough fluid. That may only be 3 gallons, 3.5 maybe. You know, this is part of a 5-gallon bucket. I'm not quite sure what it actually holds. And then, of course, there's a little bit left in that shorter one there. But, so, anyway, I mean, at least it had fluid in it, even though part of it at the bottom there was all water. So, my hands are going to smell like gear oil for a week. It's going to be great. So, alright, let me get this filled back up, and, yeah, bring you back in a minute. Alright, so this should be a 4-gallon system. I put 4 gallons in it. We're right at the fill line there, so very cool. Internet didn't lie to me on that. Like I said, we'll put a little bit of tight on that. My big crescent wrench here. And yeah, so that should be good to go. Gear oil is changed, and glad I did it because there was quite a bit of water in there. I will also admit I screwed up, and I was going to top off the transmission fluid, and I put a little bit of transmission fluid in the gear oil. So I already knew that this needed to be changed because I had screwed up and dumped the wrong kind of oil in there. And yeah, so that was part of the problem. That was part of the milkiness that I was seeing, was that transmission fluid that I'd put in there. And which that is actually, it's a 10-weight oil, but it seems to be in a bucket. I'll show you this one. This is filled to about here with transmission fluid, but look at what's sitting on top. Engine oil. Okay, this is a heavier engine oil, but the transmission fluid that's in here, now granted, it's full of water, so it's probably actually quite a bit heavier than what its weight is. But I think that's only about a 10-weight oil, yet it has settled all to the bottom. And the mixed weight 15W40 or 10W40, whatever it is in there, is it should be 15W40, but it has settled to the top of that bucket. So kind of interesting, but it seems to be heavier, or at least when it's full of water. So I think it may have settled to the bottom, and then that may account for some of the water that was in the system. If perhaps just being in there with the gear oil could have settled it out. That doesn't really make sense to me. But I think that's why the first bit of oil that I was getting out of it was so nasty looking. Is that was it was water and hydraulic fluid and 90 weight kind of all mixed together. And then I kind of got to the actual 90 weight, which would have been just this stuff. And I mean, it's not great looking. It's still pretty milky, pretty nasty. But that's definitely a lot thicker coming out than the first stuff that I drained, which I had poured some of this in here, so it's not a good representation, I guess. But anyway, so my mistake. I screwed that up, and once I realized that, I knew I was going to have to change that whole system out. But again, I'm glad I did, because I was surprised to see the water come out of the bottom of that. So anyway, that's all it takes to change the back side of the transmission on a Case 580B. We're going to go ahead and change the hydraulic filter on this. I still need to replace the hydraulic pump, but the majority of my cylinder work's done, so let's go ahead and put a new filter on here. For reference, that's where it's at. Now, I'll be honest with you, I've gone ahead and cracked this loose, and I had to use a pipe wrench to do it. It was very tight. Here's the Wix filter number, just in case you need to do it yourself. There are flats on the bottom of this. As you can see, they're pretty rounded over, and they were that way when I bought it. So, yeah, I had to put a pipe wrench right around here, and that got it. I don't love that. Got some pretty bad, you can't see it, but I can feel it, kind of scarring on that. Prefer to use a wrench, but wrench wasn't doing it. The threads, or the flats, they were just too mangled. I'll kind of show you that. I didn't do most of that. Did a little bit of it there, and somebody else has obviously put a pipe wrench up here on it. So anyway, this is a hydraulic filter, so we'll pull this down, and inside of there is going to be a filter element. Looks something like that, I hope. We'll find out. So that's of course the new one. I'm gonna get this pulled off of here. Gotta grab my buckets real quick to catch the oil, and I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so after I cracked it loose with the pipe wrench, I was able to turn it by hand from there. Looks like there's a little bit of schmoo in there. We'll clean that out. The old filter looks more or less like the new one. So let's get this out of the plastic here. Maybe. Okay, now that's interesting, because as you can see, this is kind of holding oil in there. Okay. So there's a bottom cap, so I'm gonna bet I need to reuse that cap. Give me a minute to look at this. Let me see what's going on here. So in a video I posted on Friday, you'll see how I called them in here, and I mentioned that usually they hear the four-wheeler first and then the call, and then they come in here, or wherever it is that I'm calling them to. Well, I rode the four-wheeler over that way to talk to my neighbor, and whenever I got back, they all showed up wondering if they were going to come back in here. So anyway, this cap did come off. There's this little piece of rubber plastic, not quite sure what that is, that came off of it. Now this filter element has a seal on both sides, and it appears to be exactly the same filter element as what is down there. So I think the idea is you take this cap off, you put it on one end. Look at that, it's a different size. Well, well, okay, that would make sense though, because this material is probably that gasket that's been kind of extruded out around the edges. It was pretty ununiform, and it wasn't concentric, meaning that this was not actually centered on there whenever I knocked it apart. And all I did is I stuck a screwdriver kind of in between and just lightly tapped it with a hammer, and this popped right off. So I'm going to say this is still the right filter. I think. We're going to put this down in the bottom of this. We'll drop the filter in there. We'll put it all back together. And I think we're going to be alright. One thing to note is how nasty this filter looks. See all this crap? This is the bottom side that I knocked off, like I said. And if you can tell on the inside of the filter, that part is just filthy, nasty, dirty. So what that means is that the filter was at capacity and particulates have actually been bypassing the filter. That's how you can tell if the inside, and it's the same thing with the air filter. Let me show you that on this old air filter. So the outside here is pretty dirty, pretty nasty looking, not terrible. If we look at the inside though, see how the filter elements there are still white, they're still clean for the most part. That means that the particulate that was coming in had not gone through the filter element and, you know, into the engine. In this case though, we see all this nasty growtiness. You kind of see over here, there's kind of some chunks in there. But what's really telling, so when we look at the inside, see all the crap in there? That means this filter element was much past its lifespan. So, alright, we'll get the new one in, and hopefully that's right. I'm going to be honest with you. That fit up is a lot looser tolerance than I would have expected. So that's probably a 1/4 inch difference over the diameter. But it's going to put this little groove right here, right in the center of the gasket. I think that's the way it's intended to work. So, alright, it's going to take both hands, so let me get that knocked out. For the record, I have a plan to prevent this problem of needing both hands. You'll be seeing that soon. I think it'll take about a week for some stuff to get here, and then we'll be able to show you in a little bit more detail what I'm doing. One more thing to point out is that there is an O-ring seal on this, so I didn't realize that. I didn't think about it. If I were doing this again though, I would replace that O-ring while I was here probably. At least the first time. You know, maybe next year if I change this filter again, wouldn't bother with it, but this time I would have replaced that if I had one on hand. So that's back together. There is a top plate up underneath there. I didn't think to show you guys, but it was kind of the same loose tolerance like the one that I put down here in the bottom. So I did put the pipe wrench back on it and give it just a little bit. So let's we'll start this thing up real quick and let's see if that leaks. So far so good. The way this system works, it should be pressurized at all times. Obviously we're at an idle, but it's just from here. Raise the bucket up. Tilt it a little bit. I had it bottomed out. Too far. Front wheels are off the ground. Alright, I think that's got that fixed. Now this is interesting. Before I've had problems with this tractor, I don't think the hydraulics were strong enough, or not as strong as they should have been. It could have actually been that filter, as bad as it looks, clogging everything up. So I think I'm gonna unbuckle the back end of it here, and let's play with the backhoe a little bit. The problem I've had in the past though is that the backhoe here, right, will not pick up the back end of the tractor, or at least it hasn't before, and I think it should be able to. Now, at just idling like that, easily able to pick the backhoe up off the ground with the bucket, and that has been a struggle in the past to get it that far like that. So let me jump on the let me jump in the cab real quick and let's play with it, and I want to see if I can pick the back end of the tractor up now that we replaced that filter. Man, that would be a way easier fix if that's the case. Now, the fact that I couldn't pick the back of the tractor up with the hoe led me to believe that the pump here needed to be replaced and not rebuilt. But if in fact that seal is just worn out, then I can make that repair way cheaper. So we're talking the order of like 40 bucks versus 500 bucks, which 500 bucks is the cost for the new replacement on the pump. That would still be, you know, it's not that bad, all things considered. It kind of hurts, but if I can rebuild that for, you know, a $40 seal kit, that'd be way better. So let's see if we got more power on the hydraulics back here. Well, check that out. It took a little bit of work. I kind of had to help it with the outriggers there to get it started, but I mean, see, both of them are off the ground there. It's holding it way up off of the ground, just with the hydraulics. Now, I'm noticing this is leaking again. What we're seeing there's water, but I suspect what's going on is that is full of water, and we've now leaked some oil in on the top of it. That's not actually water coming out of the hydraulic system. There's just kind of a little bowl there that catches oil or water or whatever, and so what's coming out of the hole there, that's water. That means so that we've leaked, well, it may not actually mean that we've leaked anything, but we tilted it up, obviously, quite a bit here. So, check that out. It's a pretty big improvement. Kind of surprised, to be honest with you. I didn't really expect that to work. And you can see we can go quite a bit further. So I've got it set back on the outriggers. That bottoms them out, but I can pick it up with a bucket and then set them down. That's bleeding off, and I think what that is this cylinder here that I haven't actually rebuilt yet. It's probably leaking. Keep in mind, those are connected together by this hose right there and that one. I don't know how far down these outriggers go. All right, that's it right there. So, anyway. On the ground there. Let's see if it'll pick it up just by itself. Yeah. Check that out. So that's pretty sweet. Well, okay. It would appear that my hydraulic pump's actually quite a bit stronger than I thought it was. Let's go look and see if we're leaking over here. Yeah, kind of starting to see some hydraulic fluid. So
see that milkiness in there?
So we definitely still have a leak over here, but I'm starting to think I may be able to just rebuild this pump and actually not replace it. I don't think it's actually the pump that's been causing me my problems. At this point, it looks like it was just this dirty filter. So, that would be cool if that was the case. So, the case. Hey, would this not be a perfect spot to stencil basket case? Just a thought. Alright. Well, sun's going down on me here. Looks like we're gonna have a beautiful sunset, all these clouds. So, I'm gonna tuck this all back up, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.